In this video I'm going to make a small river aquascape for some amazing fish, and I'm also going to show you how to cover your entire hardscape in moss without using glue or thread. So the tank that we're going to be scaping today is a standard size 45p, so it's 45 centimeters from left to right, and then the height and the width is more or less 30, but I'll put the exact dimensions on top of the screen. Really good size. I really like to scape a 45p, and I think they're also very good for beginners because they're not too big, they're not too heavy, you can kind of place them everywhere in the room, and they're not too expensive either. The thing that is expensive here is the light. This is the Chihiros WRGB2 Pro. I'm just using this light because I have this one available, but like I said, we're going to make an aquascape with a lot of moss, so we don't really need a lot of light. So if you want to do something like this, you can go with something cheaper as well. Now before I start scaping, I always like to do two things. One is to add a foam mat underneath the tank, just to kind of make sure the tank sits on a even surface. There's no pressure points that could potentially break the glass. We already have a foam mat in here, so that's good. The other thing I like to do is to add a background to the tank. In my opinion, it just looks very clean. You can go for white, you can go for black. I like to go for something called frosty or milky. You can find this in your local hardware store, but I'll also leave some links in the video description. Okay, background is done, nice and easy, so we can now start building our layout. I'm going to do things a little bit differently this time because I'm going to do another moss dry start. If you've never heard of the moss dry start before, it's basically a method where you cover the entire hardscape with moss, then you cover the tank with cling film, so it's a very moist environment, and then you leave it like that for 3 to 4 weeks. But I'll show you guys exactly how I'm going to do it later. So let's first start building our hardscape. So for this layout I want to use boulders. I have these light brown or beige boulders that I've used a few times already. I just really like the look of them, and it instantly gives a very natural feel to the layout, you know. So those were 3 quite big boulders. Now I'm going to go in with a few smaller ones. And I would like to make a triangular composition, so we're going to start high on the left side and slope it down towards the right. Okay, looking good. Next up I have some sort of like medium-sized gravel. I'm going to pour this all around the boulders because I would like to have some Aquasoil in the background. So the pebbles are just going to help create a little barrier between the background and the foreground. So this looks pretty good already. You could actually stop here. You could add some substrate in the background, some sand in the foreground, plant it and just leave it as this. It would look a little bit similar to the CPD river that I made a few years ago. I'll overlay a clip of that. But I want to add in quite a lot of wood to this layout as well actually, so let's do that right now. So this is just regular spider wood that I've actually used before. So some of the branches already have some moss attached to it. It's completely dry, but it should start growing again once we fill the tank up with water. But that's going to be another 4 or 5, maybe even 6 weeks. So the hardscape is done for now, so that means that we can start preparing for the moss dry start. So what do you need for a moss dry start? Of course you need a spray bottle, you need a little container, some plastic wrap, a paintbrush, and of course a little bit of moss. And this entire portion of Fiston's moss is going to be able to cover the entire hardscape in this 45p. So I have the Fiston's in this cup. I'm going to add a little bit of water, and then I'm going to use my stick blender to blend this into sort of like a moss smoothie. If you don't have a stick blender, you can also just chop it up by hand with a knife, or you can even just rip it apart with your hands, you know, that will work as well. Here we go guys, we have our moss smoothie. So the only thing I have to do now is to dip the paintbrush in here and then kind of paint all these surfaces that we want to cover with moss. So in this case, definitely all the wood branches. I'm going to add a little bit on the rocks as well. Before I'm going to do that though, I'm just going to quickly spray the hardscape with just regular water because I want everything to be nice and moist before I apply the moss. After we've applied the moss, we can't spray too much anymore because there's a chance that you're going to flush away all those moss particles. You can kind of see that there's a bunch of tiny moss particles stuck into the paintbrush. So we kind of just want to wipe those off onto the wood. Here we go. all done. So let me zoom in on the wood. And hopefully you can see that we have tiny bits of moss everywhere. I put a little bit on the rocks as well, but because they have a very smooth surface, it doesn't really stick properly, you know. If you would do this with lava rocks, it would be much better. So the only thing you have to do now is to make sure that the moss stays moist for at least 3 weeks. Usually after 3 weeks it's kind of a test, and then you can fill the tank with water. So I'm going to cover the tank with cling film and spray it, I would say once or twice a day, just with water. Or I also have this APT Dew, which is kind of like a nutrient spray that's normally used in terrariums or paludariums. In the beginning you do want to be careful with spraying, because of course the moss is not attached yet, and it's very easy to kind of spray it, get it too wet, and then it just flushes away. So be very careful, have the spray on the finest setting, if that makes sense. Yeah, I think that's it. Let's cover the tank with cling film. I'm going to put it in storage actually, because I don't want the tank in the studio area, because it just doesn't look very nice now. So I'm going to cover cling film, bring it in storage, have a light on top of it as well. Light is important, and you can go quite crazy with the light. Like 10 hours, 12 hours is fine, because you're not gonna be able to grow algae. Besides maybe a little bit on the bottom glass, but you can easily clean that as well. Okay, fast forward to about 5 weeks later. Dry start is done, and today we're going to add in the rest of the plants. Now I do have to say that I'm a little bit disappointed with the results of the dry start. I mean, we have a little bit of moss growth on this branch over here. Nothing really much on the rocks itself, and on the wood. I'll give you guys some close-ups as well, but yeah, you can see there's a little bit of green here and there, but it's not as much as I was hoping for. So I think with this moss dry start, I made 2 mistakes. Well, not really mistakes, more like learning points, you know. First of all, the smooth rocks, the boulders, it's very difficult for moss to attach to it, you know. And also when you're spraying it, like the moss kind of just slides off. Second mistake is the wood that I used was not pre-soaked, so it was very dry. But even though I was spraying it almost every day, it just wasn't moist enough for the moss to really, grow on it and attach to it, you know. So next time I should definitely pre-soak the wood and just use different rocks maybe. But even though it doesn't look like much, we definitely have quite a lot of moss here and there. And once we fill the tank with water, we add some CO2 and some fertilizer, it will definitely start growing faster. But yeah, I'm excited to start planting this one. So I'm thinking for the foreground, just sand, but maybe also add in some small crypts, like some crypt parva, for example. Then on the right side in the background, maybe just a little bit of grass here and there. And on the rocks, I want some Bucephalandra and some epiphytes. I have some Java fern as well. And then all the way in the back corner over there, I also want some stems. Let's see if I can get some stems in there. So let's add in some substrate, add in some sand, and then we can start planting. Nice, already looking completely different with the sand in there. Really like it. So let's select some plants. I've recently set up a little plant holding tank over here. I've got a brand new OASE Escape Line 60, which is going to be set up soon, but for now it's just a plant holding tank. So in here I have some really nice TRIDENT Java ferns, some small crypts and ANUBIAS and Bucephalandra, and some really nice hairgrass as well. So I also have some in vitro pots, so let me just quickly grab what I need. Here we go, all the plants prepared, except for the Bucephalandra actually. If I add those in now, they just don't really like new setups, so they'll probably melt. So we're going to start with this, and probably next week I'll add in the Bus. Okay guys, planting is done. It's looking good, really nice and vibrant green. And hopefully we'll get a nice touch of red from that Nymphaea gardneriana. So I'm now going to fill the tank up with water, install all the equipment. And then in a few minutes you guys will see the end result in a couple weeks from now. Here we are, guys. It has been more or less 50 days since I filled the tank up with water. So 5 weeks of dry start and now 50 days since filling up with water. So it's a long project, but it was definitely worth the wait. I love how the tank is growing. Also love how the moss has now fully taken off. It just grows in a way that you can't really replicate with glue or with cotton, no? Because it's very patchy. And in my opinion, it looks very natural. So the main fish that I wanted to keep in here are these emerald dwarf RASBORAS. And these guys together with CPDs are just my favorite nana fish. I love how they look. They kind of remind me of rainbow trout, you know? So I think they're very suitable for a river style aquascape. Besides those dwarf emerald RASBORAS, I've also added Borneo suckers. These are really small loaches. They don't grow much bigger than 4 or 5 centimeters, so perfect for a small river layout. And I love how these guys are constantly grazing on the rocks and the pebbles. I also wanted to keep some shrimp in here, so I've added a small group of blue Nymphaea shrimp. But to be honest with you, I haven't really seen much of them since I added them to this tank. So I think they're mostly hiding in a dense plant mass. Now speaking of plants, I've added a few more varieties. For example, the Myriophyllum matogrossense. There's a few more in here, but I'll leave a full plant list in the video description. Then in terms of equipment, I'm still using the same light, the Chihiros W RGB2 Pro. I'll put the schedule on the screen right now. I think it's on for 6 hours per day at 60% intensity. So the 6 hours per day just helps to minimize algae. Then for filtration, I'm using a external canister filter. This is the JBL E7, I think it is. So it's actually quite a strong filter for such a small tank. But again, we're going for a river, so we want to have some decent flow as well. Also using CO2. CO2 is one of those soda stream bottle systems. And it's on, as usual, like 1 hour before the light turns on and off 1 hour before the light turns off. So that's the light, filter and CO2. I've also installed an LED panel behind the tank. This is one from Lightground. To be honest, I'm only using this for final shots. I don't really have it on normally during the day, so it's kind of just a fancy gadget. Then to feed the plants, I'm using APT3. So this is a complete liquid fertilizer, has nitrate, phosphate, potassium, and all the micronutrients as well. So I'm pretty much just dosing 1 pump per day. I have a link and a discount code for this fertilizer in the video description if you want to try it out. Then to feed the fish, I'm mostly using the dry foods from OASE. So for example, these Vegivore tabs. So these are like spirulina tabs, and the loaches go absolutely crazy with them. I have a time lapse which I will overlay right now. And then for the emerald RASBORAS, they really like the color flakes. So yeah, guys, I think that's another project complete. I really love making these river style aquascapes. Just kind of combines biotopes and aquascaping together, you know. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one as well. As always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to smash the like button and see you in the next one.